نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وإن خير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة ضلالة. Brothers and sisters, throughout the world, when people are surveyed about the number one thing they wish they could have, the number one thing that they're looking for in life, it may surprise you that their top or at the top of the list is not money. It's not even comfort or luxury. The number one thing, and this is mentioned by psychologists, that people are looking for throughout the world is happiness, contentment. And in our religion, we always have to define these terms or these concepts how Islam defined them. As-sa'ada, which means much more than just happiness and contentment. It also means having confidence. But brothers and sisters, to attain happiness is something, unfortunately, for many people of this world, has become nearly impossible. And so there are certain keys that are needed and able to attain this treasure of happiness and contentment. And today I would like to just focus on one aspect of one of those keys, which is how to learn to be content with the decree of Allah Azza wa Jal, no matter what befalls you. Because that's one of the most difficult things. How is it that whatever happens in this life, good or bad, but in particular when it's bad, how can you learn to be content with it? You will find example after example in the Quran, in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these stories that we love to read, the stories of the prophets, where again and again, something can seem so horrible, something can seem so distressful, something can seem like such a calamity. Everything on the exterior about it is wrong, is hard, is painful. But there is a master plan that Allah Azza wa Jalla has behind it that facilitates itself through that hardship. And sometimes we need that reminder in order to get us through that hardship, to know that at the end there will come ease. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. With every one difficulty comes multiple eases. And instead of looking at stories of the prophets so that one may say that is for the prophets, well, what about us? I would like to examine a famous story that relates to a prophet, in fact, the greatest prophet, Nabiyuna Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but in particular his wife Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. And the story, as many of you know, is the story of the ifk, of the slander. And Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she said that it was customary of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that when he would go on travel, that he would take one of his spouses with him. And the way that they would decide that is they would cast lots, meaning they would gather together some sticks, and the shortest one, or the one who pulled the longer stick, they were the ones whose turn it was then to go and travel with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so she said that I was the one that drew the longest stick. And again, here you can see, why was Aisha chosen? Brothers and sisters, there are a few principles to remember whenever you go through anything in life, in particular a difficult issue. Allah Azza wa Jalla is in control of everything. That in and of itself, when you take and consider that with the names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jalla, in particular the fact that He's the most just, the fact that He's the most merciful, the fact that He's the most compassionate, the fact that He's wudud, that He's the most loving, Then when you just take a step back and remember, whatever is happening to me, whatever is happening in the world, whatever calamity that we face, know that Allah Azza wa Jal knows about it, is in control of it. That will help give you comfort. And so you can see just in the beginning of the story how it is already Aisha is being chosen to be tested with something. And so she said that we traveled, and once the Prophet ﷺ had completed his mission, on the way back, we took rest at a place just a bit outside of Medina, and the announcement was made at nighttime that it is everyone get their things in order. We're now traveling and continuing on our journey. So Aisha, she said this was an opportunity for me to go and use the restroom. And she said that I went to use the restroom, and on my way back, I noticed that my necklace was missing. And it had some precious stones. So I wanted to go back and look for it. And Aisha, she's young at the time. And so she's not paying attention to the time. She's so consumed with this piece of jewelry that she had lost. And she also said that I was carried in a hawdaj. See, this happened after the ayah of hijab was revealed. And so when I would travel, when the women would travel, they would travel in a carriage. Maybe you've seen it from some of those old pictures of the Arab caravans, this wooden carriage that they would then, when the person was ready to get down, they would put it down and then they would lift it up and put it on top of the camel. But she said that at that time, we didn't have much food in Medina. Women were generally, they didn't have much meat on their bones because they only ate like a small portion of food, what was just enough to suffice for a person. And so she said that when they lifted my carriage up and put it on the horse, I was very light. They didn't notice the weight difference, and I was left behind. And so when I returned back to the campsite, there was nobody in sight. And so she said, without getting too anxious or worried, having good thoughts with Allah Azza wa Jal, she said that I decided to just stay put where my tent site was, assuming that they would come back for me once they noticed that I'm missing. But she said, it was a long day. I became tired and I fell asleep. I didn't wake up until the morning until I heard somebody standing over me. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Something you say when there's a great calamity. And that person was Safwan ibn Mu'attil. He was a companion, a younger companion. She said that he had lagged behind on the army. Perhaps the Prophet ﷺ sent him out on a separate mission. Nevertheless, he was catching up. He saw a figure, got closer, recognized me because he had seen me before the hijab was ordered. And he's proclaimed those words because this is indeed a calamity. The beloved, the most beloved wife of the Prophet ﷺ stranded behind. And so she said that after me hearing that from him, we never spoke a word to each other. And he, with great quality, with great character, he got off of his riding animal. He brought it down. He stepped on its foot so it would be easier for me to get on it. And he walked in front of me leading the animal. And again, never looked back, never said a word to me. Until we reached in the middle of the day, in the middle of the heat, we caught up with the army. Now, for most, this wasn't that big of an issue to see. But for those who wanted to take advantage, for those who had such animosity towards the Muslims, so much jealousy, like the hypocrites in particular, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Sulul, the leader of the hypocrites, took advantage of this. And so he started to spread a rumor between them and about them. Because a person that's evil and has this diseased heart automatically assumes that other people are evil. The thief is the most protective of his or her things because they always assume someone else is going to do the same. And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala said that once I arrived back to Medina, I became very ill for a month. And she said I had no idea of what was being spread amongst the people. And Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salud, he's just pouring gasoline on this fire. Anyone who comes and visits, did you hear what happened? Did you hear what so-and-so? What did you hear? Oh, that's what I heard as well, but I think this happened as well. And he's just spreading this slander. And even some of the Sahaba, some of the virtuous characters that we hear about, even they fell prey to this slander. And even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very distressed and grieved about this. See, we take for granted now this event and what came after that event from revelation. Principles, you are innocent until proven guilty. But this is before the revelation. And this is causing much harm and distress on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Aisha, she said that I was completely oblivious. The only thing that caused me somewhat of doubt is that I noticed the change in the character of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. See, normally when I was sick, and just in general, the Prophet ﷺ kind of mazahan fil bayt. He was always joking and jolly with us in the house. Whenever I felt pain, whenever I complained about something, he would rush to my aid. He would be there to give me comfort, his gentleness. She said that, but I had noticed the demeanor of the Prophet ﷺ had changed into where he was drier with me. He would enter and he would say, Kayfa tikum? How is this one or this thing doing? Checking up on my status, but not giving me that love, that compassion, that comfort that I was used to. But she said, other than that, maybe he was busy. Allah Alam, I didn't have any suspicion. Until finally, one night when I started to feel a little bit better, I went out to use the restroom with Mistah. So, and yes, back then, sisters still used to go in groups to the bathroom. And they would go on the outskirts of Medina, which is now known as the Baqi', out of privacy. And so she said that when we were coming back, Mistah, she tripped over her skirt. And she said, Ta'isa Mistah. She said, may my son Mistah be perished. And Aisha said, how could you say such a thing? That's your own son. And he was also a relative of Aisha. Mistah was the maternal aunt of Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. She said, how could you say such a thing? And this is someone that Mistah, he participated in Badr. The people of Badr has such a special status. How could you say that about him? She said, are you that oblivious? Do you not know what he's been saying and others are saying about you? She said, no, I have no idea what's being said. And she informed. And Aisha said that when I was finally starting to feel better, I felt much worse from the anguish and the grief and the stress of hearing what people are saying about me. And this is going around and people are accusing me of this. So she says she went back home sick to her stomach. And the Prophet ﷺ entered upon her again and said the same thing. Kayfa tikum? She said, Ya Rasulullah, I seek permission to go and stay with my parents for some time. Because Aisha, she wants to find comfort with her parents. Aisha, she wants to hear from her parents, from her mother in particular. She wants to confirm, is this truly happening? Is this really what people are saying? And so the Prophet ﷺ gave her permission. And so she goes and stays with her mother and she says, oh, my mother, are people saying this about me? And her mother tries to give her comfort. And she says, Hawwani alayki ya Aisha. Aisha, don't be too worried about this. Don't even pay attention to it. Because it's very frequent that a beautiful young bride who shares as being a co-wife to a husband, that their other wives will try and take advantage and say bad things about him. Just don't even pay attention. But all Aisha heard was that her mother was confirming that which she had already heard. And she said that I fell down sick again and cried and cried and cried. And I cried all night. All night I was up. And in the morning I woke up crying. And people would even enter on Aisha to see how she's doing. And so one of the women from the Ansar, she entered upon Aisha. And she said, she started to curse so-and-so and so-and-so. Why are you cursing them? Because they're the ones taking part of this. Now Aisha is hearing that this is really serious. This is spreading further and further. And so Aisha's concern is, she says, and did my husband, did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did the news reach him? Yes, it's even reached him. What about my father, Abu Bakr? Did the news reach him? Yes, it reached him. And Aisha fell down unconscious due to the stress. And she woke up trembling out of a severe fever and chills. And her mother was gathering every single garment she could in the house just to wrap her, just to give her some comfort. But it wasn't helping. And this was the state that Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha was in. And what about our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What effect was this having on him? Inshallah, we will cover that in the next khutbah. أقول ما تسمعون واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله نصلي على خير خلق الله نبينا محمد طب القلوب ودوائها وعافية الأبدان وشفائها ونور الأبصار وضيائها وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sought comfort from some of the younger companions for various reasons. One of them, because when you're younger, you tend to be more brazen in your approach. You will just say it as it is. And because they're closer to the generation of Aisha, so maybe they heard something that others hadn't heard. And so he summoned Usama bin Zayd, he summoned Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Usama bin Zayd said, Ya Rasulullah, what can I say? Ahluk. وفي رواية بالنصب أهلك. This is your family. You have more right that Allah chooses what's best for you, and I only know good from them. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu took a more pragmatic approach, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, essentially there's plenty of fish in the sea. If this is something that's concerning you so much at this point, you can have the option to separate from Aisha, relieve yourself of this stress, and then once her innocence is proven, you can take her back and you can marry someone else in the meantime. Or, and this shows you the wisdom that Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu had, that he had confidence in Aisha's being innocent. He said, but you should go ask her servant, Barira. Why? Because she knows who's coming in and out of the house. She knows her deepest intimate secrets, and she will be truthful with you. So he summoned Barira. He said, Ya Barira, do you know of anything from Aisha that would make you suspicious of her? And Barira said, Ya Rasulullah, there's nothing that I've ever experienced from her that I can blame her for. وَالَّذِي بَعَثَكَ بِالْحَقِّ, the one that has sent you with truth. Except that she's young. And so sometimes she may be negligent in some of her chores. She may be cooking, preparing some dough. She leaves it out, falls asleep. And then some animals come. Now they think there's food. They're always coming back. But other than that, I haven't witnessed anything from her. And so now this has given the Prophet ﷺ some more confidence to address the community. And so he goes and he stands on the minbar. And he says, such and such has reached me from news about my family. And I swear by Allah, I only know good from my family. And the people that they are mentioning, meaning Safwan, I only know good of him. And he has never entered my house except with me. And so who will be as a judge who will help give justice and serve justice between me and a person, a man, meaning Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Sulul, who has caused so much harm that it has reached the depth of my house. And so Sa'd ibn Mu'adh, the leader of the Aus, the people of Medina were of two major tribes, Al-Aus and Khazraj. The leader of Al-Aus stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, if he's from us, from our tribe, then we'll chop his head off. And if he's from our brothers, from Al-Khazraj, then you tell us what to do and we will implement your plan. And so one of the leaders from Sa'd ibn Ubadah, one of the leaders of Al-Khazraj, got very upset and tribalism started to take over. And he said, and he swore by Allah, you're lying, Sa'd. Because if he was from your tribe, you would never kill him. And you will never be able to kill him, meaning because we'll defend him. And so now Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas stands up and it says, you are just defending, you're a hypocrite and you're defending hypocrites. These are very serious accusations. And so now the people of the masjid get up and they start to almost go to war with one another. You can see again the calamity and the civil strife that this has caused in the community. And so the Prophet ﷺ is telling them, calm down, it's okay. And finally everybody calms down. And the Prophet ﷺ decides another approach. He goes to Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha and he enters upon her and she said, I've been crying for now 2 nights and a day. And I'm still sick. Women would come in just to cry with me. And he said that, or she said that when the Prophet ﷺ entered, and he has never even sat close to me this whole time. And the Prophet ﷺ, a month has gone by. And he's waiting for some form of revelation and nothing has came. And so she said that he sat down and he said the Shahada and then he said and addressed Aisha and he said, Ya Aisha, this is what has reached me. And notice even the wording that he uses, so cautious. And he said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Ya Aisha, if you are free, then Allah will free you. But if you have al-mamti, like if you've even been acquainted with this, then seek forgiveness, because anyone who seeks forgiveness and admits to their wrongdoing, they will be free and Allah will give them forgiveness. And Aisha said that at that moment, my tears cut off. Now she's frustrated. And she sits up and she says to her father, "Oh, my father, address the Prophet." She says, "Yeah, Aisha, I don't know what to say." And then she addresses her mother, "Yeah, Ummi, oh my dear mother, stand and address the Prophet ﷺ. I don't know what to say to the Prophet, yeah, Aisha." And Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, she said that I was young, I didn't read much of Quran, but notice what she said. But I knew my answer was in the Quran. Aisha, she never gave up hope. She said that I had assumed that Allah Azza wa Jalla would reveal to the Prophet ﷺ at some point, freeing me, clearing my innocence. She never let go of that high hopes with Allah Azza wa Jal. She found her answer in the Quran. And that's one of the major points of the stories, brothers and sisters, is that you will face hardship. You will face things that not even your parents or the most closest people to you that love you so much can alleviate from you. You will face hardship that you may be willing to sacrifice everything you own just to free yourself from it. You may find yourself in the depths of the night, crying in the corner of your room, begging Allah Azza wa Jalla to remove hardship from you. But it is only Allah that can ever remove it. And if Allah ever afflicts you with hardship, then know that it is only Allah that can remove it. You have to have those positive thoughts of Allah. And so she addressed them and she said, I don't find any comparison between me and you all, except the comparison of what the father of Yusuf alayhi salam said. Because if I tell you, and Allah knows I'm truthful, that I'm free, you won't believe me. And if I admit to something I didn't do, you will believe me. So I have nothing else to say except فَصَبْرٌ جَمِيلٌ وَاللَّهُ الْمُسْتَعَانُ عَلَى مَا تَصِفُونَ. I have nothing to say to you except a beautiful bearing with patience, and Allah is the one we seek assistance in that which you ascribed. And at that moment, Aisha said the trance that would come on the Prophet ﷺ when he would receive revelation overcame him, until you could see these beautiful pearls of sweat dripping down even on a cold night. And the Prophet ﷺ comes to it and he says, "Ya Aisha, Ya Aisha, Allah has freed you. Allah has given and declared your innocence." Aisha said that I never imagined that revelation from above the seven heavens. Maybe the Prophet ﷺ would receive it in a dream. Maybe Jibreel alayhi salam would tell him, but revelation from above the seven heavens that would be revealed and recited until the end of times regarding me. I didn't hold myself in that regard. But look at the comfort. Look at what Allah Azza wa Jal gave her based upon her confidence with Him. The tight rope that she held on to with Allah. And so Aisha's mother says, "Ya Aisha, look at the good news. Go stand up and greet your husband. You haven't embraced him for over a month." And Aisha said, "No, I'm not getting up." She's still upset. She's still upset. And she said, "I will praise and I will thank Allah Azza wa Jal, but I won't praise anyone else and I won't praise you," to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Brothers and sisters, there are so many lessons we can extract from this story, but I want to leave with just one. If you go through the whole Quran, you will find a certain formula of success and ease when faced with any hardship. And that is anyone that has iman with Allah and tawakkul, reliance upon Allah, and has taqwa, and has patience, and tries to excel, meaning they're from the muhsineen, Allah promises He will alleviate any hardship. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to alleviate any hardship from us. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to lift any hardship from the ummah. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to cure all of our sick. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to have mercy upon all of our dead. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to strengthen our iman in Him, to always have good thoughts in Him, to make us from those who serve and His religion. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa aqim as-salat.